Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 5th of May of 2023. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And the most important and interesting updates are coming from Ukraine. This morning the head of Wagner's, Prigozhin, made another video where he was saying that Wagner's took a decision to leave Bakhmut. They're saying that as a result of absence of any type of any kind of support and supply of his forces, of Wagner forces in Bakhmut, that they can't continue any offensive operation, they're losing soldiers, and because of losses of manpower, they took a decision to leave Bakhmut by the 10th of May. By the evening of the 9th of May, they will continue doing their job, but in the morning of the 10th of May, according to the words of Prigozhin, they will leave Bakhmut and go to the camps in the backs in the reserve positions, where they will expect when the Russians will ask them for another help. Right after this video, right after this situation happened, the Minister of Defense, the head of Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, Shoigu, visited the the command area of the south, where he inspected the forces, the ammo depots, the quality of supply and support of Russian forces on the combat line. During that process, the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation was shown the modern T-90 tanks. He inspected the armored vehicles, tanks, ammo depots, and so on. And according to this video, as you can see, there are hundreds of T-90 tanks, most modern and most powerful tanks in the world, that waits for their turn to be sent on the combat line to the front line. And I believe that these days these tanks will be sent to Zaporozhye, trying to stop and not allow the Ukrainians to develop their counter-offensive operation in this area. Furthermore, during this inspection, we could see not just the T-90, we also could see T-64 tanks that are completely modernized and upgraded by the Russians industry, and so on. So according to this video, we understand that the Russians are ready to meet the Ukrainians. And that's it about the situation in this area. Very interesting update are coming from Poland. As you can see, Zelensky yesterday was in the Netherlands, and today he moved from the Netherlands in direction of Poland, and currently he's located in this country. I believe that currently he is signing more papers, more documents. Here he's receiving the final instructions before the beginning of the greatest counter-offensive operation. I believe he have already signed a lot of documents with the Poland, with United States, with England, and so on. I believe that he has already prepared some surprise for the Russians. So as I understand, and I believe that most of you understand this as well, that as soon as Zelensky returns back to Ukraine, the greatest counter-offensive operation will be started. Very interesting updates is coming from Kharkiv. This is not connected, of course, to the situation with the special military operation, Prigozhin, Zelensky. As you know, today the American blogger and reporter Gonzalo Lira was captured by the Ukrainian SBU. And according to the official Ukrainian sources, he was captured because the American citizen was captured because he supported Russia, he supported Putin, and because of the fact that, according to Gonzalo Lira, he called the Ukrainian regime as a neo-Nazi regime. So that's why the Kharkiv special forces arrested him, and according to the local law, now Gonzalo Lira can be arrested and to put into the jail from 4 till 8 years. So I hope that everything is going to be fine with this man, and soon he will be released, and finally he will be able to leave this country. Now let's go to the ground and let's discuss the situation on the ground. And for these purposes, let's take a look first of all at the Russian sources map. As you can see, there are a lot of icons in the Zaporozhye area, and this is the evacuation zone. As you know, today the Russian authorities in this area adopted a law. According to this law, they started the massive evacuation of the civilians in this area, started from Energodar and ending somewhere on the north of Mariupol. The Russians are saying that there are more than 70,000 of civilians who will be evacuated during the next maybe even hours. As we understand, the Russians have already finished the preparation before the Ukraine's greatest counter-offensive operation. I don't think that these people will be able to return back in the near future to their homeland, because during the next months I believe that this area will be turned into hell, and there are going to be very fierce clashes between the Russian forces and the Ukrainian forces. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, for example, reported that during the previous 24 hours, as a result of clashes in this area, the Ukrainians lost 101 soldiers, 6 armored vehicles, including 1 tank, and 5 artillery systems. As you can see, the level of losses of the Ukrainians in this area increased in comparison with the previous days, so we see that there is a real activation and intensifying of fightings all over the combat line. Very interesting updates are coming from Kherson. The Russians reported that during the previous 24 hours they managed to shut down at least 225 airplanes. Furthermore, the Russians are saying that as a result of missile and rocket attacks in direction of Kherson, they managed to destroy the Ukrainian forces on the railroad station, and as a result of that attack, the Ukrainians lost 80 soldiers and 38 armored vehicles, 4 artillery systems. As you can see, the losses of the Ukrainians in Kherson are very high, and mainly this is connected with the upcoming greatest counter-offensive operation. We understand that the Ukrainians, before this offensive operation, need to bring as much as possible manpower and forces along Dnipro River, and this gives the Russians a significant opportunity to destroy the accumulation of the Ukrainian forces along the Dnipro River. But anyway, from the other side, that means that the Ukrainians do have plans to cross Dnipro River and to attack the Russians' garrison in Zaporozhye, also from Kherson in direction of Crimea. So we'll follow this situation as well. Now let's move to Bakhmut. There are a lot of very interesting updates are coming from Bakhmut. As you can see, I have already updated this map and I have already shown you the supply roads that Ukrainians were using to support and supply Bakhmut since the beginning of the storming operation of Bakhmut. The first road, N32, we're going through from Konstantinovka through Chasov Yar and Ivanovsk in direction of Bakhmut, but a few months ago the Russians or the Ukrainians destroyed that bridge, and currently there are a few pontoon bridges that are located in the forest that are very difficult to discover and to see from the satellites. This bridge was destroyed a few months ago. Another bridge was located between Chasov Yar along the 0506 road that goes to Khromovo, and according to the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, that bridge was destroyed today as a result of air attack. And the third bridge, the third supply road, went on the north through Chasov Yar to Bogdanovka and then through 0506 road. But as a result of fierce clashing and storming operation of the Russians in the vicinity of Bogdanovka, this road is currently blocked by the Russians, and the Ukrainians can't use it because there is a wall of the Russians right exactly along the railroad ways. Furthermore, this is not a very good supply road because of number of barriers in front along this road. The first one is the channel, then there is a Bogdanovka, then there is a railroad ways, and then you are getting right to the north of Khromovo where we can find the Russian Wagner positions. So as we understand that two of those supply roads were destroyed by explosions and the Russian attack, and the third one is blocked. But when talking about this entire situation, I have one question. Why haven't the Russians destroyed this bridge a few months ago? From one side, as I understand, that maybe possibly this is a controllable situation when the Russians kept this bridge just for one purpose, to control this area, to calculate it, to understand what exactly the Ukrainians were able and did send to western part of Bakhmut. But from the other side, as I understand, based on the conflict between Prigozhin and the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, that probably that situation was made not with some purposes and some reasons. Anyway, we'll see, and I believe that this is the final point in defense of Bakhmut, and sources are saying that no matter that the Wagners reported that they're planning to retreat and to evacuate from this area, the Russians and the Ukrainian sources are saying that the Russians are bringing more and more soldiers, and these days, maybe the next hours, they're planning to launch the final offensive operation, and there is a goal and there is a purpose, there is a target to establish control over the western part of Bakhmut before the 9th of May. And possibly, and there is a very high chances that the Russians are going to do this or will try to implement this task within the next few days. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of clashes on Donetsk front line, the Ukrainians lost 310 soldiers, 8 armored vehicles and 3 artillery systems. Furthermore, as a result of missile drone attack in the vicinity of Bakhmut, the Russians destroyed the warehouse ammo depot of 54th Mechanized Brigade in Kramatorsk. The main base and the main positions of this 54th Mechanized Brigade is in the vicinity of Bilogorovka. There is a very heavy clashes and there is a very fierce battle for this bridgehead, and as we can see that there are still no progress from both sides. Neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians were able to achieve some progress. I believe that the front line is stabilized and the Russians are currently located in the industrial zone and the Ukrainians are controlling the hills on the northwest of this area without any changes on the ground. The Russians are saying that as a result of clashes on the Liman front line, they attacked and hit the positions of 81st Brigade, 58th Brigade, and furthermore, the Russians destroyed one ammo depot of 66th Mechanized Brigade, to be more precise, of artillery battalion or artillery group of that Mechanized Brigade. When talking about Kupiansk front line, there are no changes in comparison with the previous days. I'm talking about the tactics. The loss of the Ukrainians very heavy, 95 soldiers, 8 armored vehicles and 2 artillery systems. Furthermore, the Ukrainians lost another ammo depot of 127th Territory Defense Brigade. When talking about the entire front line, entire combat line, we see that there is a real intensifying of activity from both sides, and the main reason is that I'm saying this is that the level of losses of the Ukrainians has been increased on every single front line in comparison with the previous period. One more time, on Kherson, the Ukraine lost 80 soldiers. During the previous days, they lost something around 50, 20, 30 soldiers. On the South Donetsk and Zaporozhye area, the Ukrainians lost around 100 soldiers. In comparison with the previous days, the highest level was around 70, 69, sometimes 90 soldiers. When talking about Donetsk, the level of losses is very big as usually. When talking about Liman, there are no changes in comparison with the previous months, but when talking about Kupiansk, the losses are very heavy, and as we can see, the Russians started doing something because they understand that Ukrainians are going to launch their counter-offensive operation very soon, and I expect that within the next few days, when Zelensky returns back to Ukraine, we're going to see more missile, drone attack, and we will see the real activation of the clashes in Zaporozhye area, where exactly the Russians took a decision to evacuate the civilians. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.